You want to transcribe extended range guitar tracks into a 6-string track for Rocksmith. There are a couple things you have to be mindful of. The first most important thing is how many additional strings do you have to account for? In the case of Algorithm by Beyond Creation, I would have to be mindful of this A and this E string. So first, starting out, you'll want to look at your tuning. I would recommend that if you're going to be transcribing extended range tracks down to 6-string for Rocksmith purposes that use Guitar Pro. I know Tux Guitar or other guitar software can be used, but it's a lot more tedious to do. And I'm only really familiar with how to do it in Guitar Pro. So the first thing I want to do is I want to see how many semitones are between my two lowest strings and then whatever strings I'm going to be using for the 6-string track. Generally, what I find to work best is to remove the lower strings rather than the higher strings, because if you have to transcribe songs that have solos in them, if you're using a multi-pitch pedal to get back that high note range, it sounds a lot worse than using the multi-pitch pedal for the lower range. So it's always better to remove the lower strings rather than the higher strings. So what I mean by that is, if we wanted to get this down to 6-string, we would either have to cut out these two these two high strings or these two low strings. And I've always found it better to cut the two low strings rather than the two high strings. So in this case, I'll be cutting the two low strings. So let me see what's the difference between this A1 and this G2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 semitones. Let me see if it's the same for the 8th and the 6th string. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It is, which is great. Unfortunately, not all songs are going to be like this. The lowest string might be dropped, and then you have some trouble there. If it is dropped, then you might need to use multiple different pitch effects when you're transcribing or when you're charting the song with a different tone. That gets a little more nuanced, and maybe you want to drop this string as well. That way, both of these are the same distance away, semitone-wise, from the two strings above it. That will take a little bit of messing around on your part for that specific song to see what works best. But in this case, I just need a 10 semitone, and I just need to drop the strings by 10 semitones. So first what I'll do is I'll duplicate this track. So let me duplicate the Kevin track. And what I'll do is I'll put edited after it. And then next, I'll now make that 10 semitone change. And then I'll keep the fingering because I want the position of the fingers to be the same. However, I want the string tuning to be the same as the two strings above it. That way, when you copy and paste the notes onto a separate track, it'll remain on the same string, but it'll maintain the position on the fretboard. And it's important to maintain the position on the fretboard because when you use a pitch effect in Rocksmith tones, you want it to play the same notes as if you were on an 8-string guitar, but you're just on different strings that are 10 semitones out of tune, or 10 semitones higher, and then the pitch effect will just bring it back 10 semitones lower. So I'll keep the fingering. There we go. My track's done. The next thing I'll do, I'll add a new track. I'll change it to be D standard since that's what the 6-string equivalent should be. Go. Also bring this up a little bit. I'll also make this bottom part bigger, that way you can see where all of these lie. So I'll rename the chart or the track. And I'll specify that it's a 6-string version. So now the next thing that I need to do is essentially, I copy this entire track. I paste it into my newly created track. And what this should do is it'll have all the notes there, all in the correct position on the proper strings, and it should all just work. Unfortunately, it's not always the case. As we can see here, this is not the correct chord. If we go back to the other chart, or the other track, we see that it's 3-5-5. This probably sounds the same, but I want to make sure that I'm actually doing this properly. This is where it gets a little finicky. So you'll have to manually go through this and re-verify that all of this is in the right position. It looks like it again messed up here. So just going through and being mindful that, positions can change and there can be mistakes. So that looks good. And I'll also just enable only the tracks that I'm interested in. So my edited one and the 6-string one. The rest of them I'll get rid of. And now I can go through, and this will make it much easier to see, where mistakes are from the copy process. So this part looks good. I'll keep going. That was a string too low, or string too high, sorry. So even though, as you can see, while some of this stuff is correct, not all of it is. So what I'm doing to shift these notes up and down a string is you select a note that you're interested in shifting, and then you can hold Alt and press up or down to make it go up or down a string, and it'll maintain the pitch, but it'll just change what string it's being played on. So makes it much easier to move these notes and keep them at the correct pitch. And you'll notice that even though this is at a different position here, but as I move it up, it'll go to the right position. If it's better to play it at a different position, then by all means consider having it at that position. But generally, you want to have it be wherever it originally was. Since the notes will be the same, it's just you're playing it at a different part of the guitar. So I'll keep going through. Unfortunately, this is going to be quite a lengthy process, as it looks like it messed up quite a bit of the song. But your mileage may vary. Sometimes it's been perfect for me. Other times it does give me trouble. That's looking good. Isn't. Whoops. And so you get the point. You'll go through the entire song. You'll make sure all of it is good, and then when you get into Editor on Fire, you'll mark the positions where you would normally be playing on the lower strings as a different tone than your standard tone for the rest of the song. For instance, let's go back to the start here. If we look at this, we can see that while you're playing the same chord, or you're playing the same type of chord, a power chord, you're playing it on different strings. You would have to have a tone here that's 10 semitones lower in order to maintain the same pitch and sound of the original chord. And so it's just good to be mindful of that. And you'll have to compare where the tone changes will be needed. So for instance, in the beginning, you'll need a single tone for this as the dropped tone, which has that multi-pitch effect, excuse me. And then for this part, you can go back to a standard one because now you're playing within the range of the original 6-string. So you'll have to switch back and forth, and I'll make an updated video after this to show you that process. But this is the general gist of things. And if you have a chart or a tab that has the solo guitar, for instance, tabbed on a separate track, you can combine them. And again, you'll have to go through the same process, but it's relatively pain-free and easy to do. Hopefully this helped, and take care.